Good morning, students. Today I'll take class on fibrinolytic system and antiplatelet drugs. This is the continuation of chapter coagulants and oral anticoagulants, which I have taught you in the last class. Hope you read mechanism of aspirin and oral anticoagulants, which I have asked you to read in the last class. Now coming to introduction, what is fibrinolytic system? It is otherwise called as fibrinolysis. So whenever there is a damage to muscular endothelium, the platelets will adhere and aggregate at the site of damage, which is supported by fibrin to form a hemostatic thrombi. The function of fibrinolytic system is it will convert the fibrin to fibrin degradation products. So fibrinolysis is nothing but it is a process of fibrin digestion by the fibrin specific protease, that is plasmin. Then fibrinolytic system, see this in this diagram I shall explain. This is plasminogen, which is an inactive enzyme, and this is mostly secreted by the endothelial cells. So this is plasminogen, which is inactive. So it gets converted to the active enzyme that is called plasmin. The activation, there are some activation stimuli and also the inhibitory stimuli. So the inhibitory stimuli are the drug that is aminocapric acid and tranexamic acid, which I have taught in my last class, that inhibit the plasminogen to plasmin. So they were called as antifibrinolytics. Today we will know about fibrinolytics, that is conversion of plasminogen to plasmin. That include drugs like urokinase, streptokinase and anistriptase. There are the other drugs also. So this plasmin, what happens? It causes conversion of fibrinogen to its degradation product, and fibrinogen also get converted to fibrin by thrombin, which is factor 2. And fibrin again get degraded to its fibrin split products. So this is the cycle of fibrinolytic system. Remember, plasminogen is an inactive enzyme which is secreted by the damaged endothelial cells, and this inactive enzyme gets converted to the active enzyme, that is plasmin, and there are some activation stimuli and inhibitory stimuli. The inhibitory drugs are aminocapric acid and tranexamic acid, which inhibit the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin. The activatory stimuli which is there, the drugs are streptokinase, urokinase and anistriptase. And this plasminogen gets converted to plasmin by the enzyme TPA. What is TPA? This is tissue plasminogen activator. Tissue plasminogen activator. So this cycle is called as fibrinolytic system, and these drugs are called as antifibrinolytics as they inhibit the fibrinolytic system. The plasmin, which is the active enzyme, it converts fibrinogen to its degradation products, and fibrinogen gets converted to fibrin with the help of thrombin, which is factor 2, and fibrin gets splitted to its degraded products, that is fibrin split products. So remember, fibrinolytic system is same as your coagulation system. Here the precursor form is serine protease, that is plasmin, which circulates in the inactive form as plasminogen. So in response to the injury, the endothelial cells will synthesize and release, that is tissue plasminogen activator, which is called as TPA. It converts plasminogen to plasmin. The plasmin then remodels the thrombus and limits its extension by proteolytic digestion of fibrin. So remember, plasminogen is an inactive enzyme and it gets converted to the plasmin by tissue plasminogen activator, and this plasmin further degrades fibrinogen to its degradation products, and fibrinogen gets converted to fibrin by the factor 2, that is thrombin, and fibrin further gets degraded to fibrin split products. So this is the endothelial cells. Okay, the endothelial cells will secrete tissue plasminogen activator at the site of the injury. And this tissue plasminogen activator will bind to the fibrin and it cause breakdown of plasminogen, which is the inactive enzyme, to the active enzyme, that is plasmin, and that results in the fibrin digestion. And there are plasminogen activator inhibitor 1 and inhibitor 2. They inactivate tissue plasminogen activator, and there is also alpha 2 anti-plasmin. It inactivates plasmin. Okay, so in this diagram, this is the intact endothelial cells. Whenever there is an injury, at the site of the injury, endothelial cells will secrete tissue plasminogen activator, and they cause breakdown of plasminogen to plasmin, and this plasmin causes digestion of fibrin. And this is plasminogen activator inhibitor 1 and 2, which inhibits tissue plasminogen activator, and this is alpha 2 anti-plasmin, which inhibits plasmin. Now coming to the drugs, there are 6 fibrinolytic drugs which is available to achieve the reperfusion of infected area. It is further divided into 3 generations, that is first generation, second generation and third generation. In first generation, you will have drugs like streptokinase and urokinase. In second generation, the drugs are alteplase and enistriptase. And third generation, you have tenecteplase and reteplase. So these are the 6 fibrinolytic drugs, that is first generation, second generation and third generation. First generation, the drugs are streptokinase and urokinase, and second generation, the drugs are alteplase and enistriptase. The third generation, the drugs are tenecteplase and reteplase. But remember, the drugs which are ending with T-E-P-L-A-S-E, teplase, that can be alteplase, reteplase, tenecteplase. These are the 3 drugs. They are developed by recombinant DNA technology, and the 3 drugs are called as recombinant tissue plasminogen activators. So remember, the drugs ending with T-E-P-L-A-S-E, teplase, that can be alteplase, tenecteplase and reteplase. These are the 3 drugs which are called as recombinant tissue plasminogen activators because they are developed by recombinant DNA technology. Now, all these 6 fibrinolytic drugs are usually administered through IV infusion or bolus, and they are mostly indicated for acute MIKs, peripheral arterial thrombosis, embolism, and for unclotting catheters. So the main disadvantage of these drugs is, the main side effect is hemorrhage, that is bleeding. Why so? Because the agents do not distinguish between pathological thrombi and fibrin deposits at the site of vascular injury. So they will not distinguish between the pathological thrombi and fibrin deposits. So the main side effect will be hemorrhage of these drugs. Now coming to the individual drugs, first is streptokinase. Remember, this is a protease enzyme. It is produced by beta hemolytic streptococci. So what does the streptokinase do? It forms a stable and non-covalent complex with a pro-activator. Okay, pro-activator plasminogen is there, and the streptokinase forms 1:1 complex. That is the bond with this pro-activator, and this bond is non-covalent, not covalent, that is non-covalent bond with pro-activator plasminogen. And after forming a complex, they catalyzes the breakdown of fibrinogen. Thus, it causes fibrinolysis and dissolution of the clot. So, remember, this is a protease enzyme. It is mostly synthesized by the bacteria, that is beta hemolytic streptococci. And then they form a stable complex, that is 1:1 with this pro-activator. And after forming the complex, they causes a degradation or breakdown of fibrinogen. And the half-life of this drug is 40 to 80 minutes. So what happens is, it is developed or produced by beta hemolytic streptococci. Once you administer this drug, our body will develop anti-streptococcal antibodies. And before, if the person is having any past infection of beta hemolytic streptococci, already the person will be having anti-streptococcal antibodies. And because of the presence of these anti-streptococcal antibodies due to some past infection, when you give streptokinase, they will destroy major amount of streptokinase. So the loading dose of streptokinase is required to overcome the fraction destroyed. So whenever you treat the patient with streptokinase, first you have to give the loading dose. Because if there is some past infection with beta hemolytic streptococci, our body will be having anti-streptococcal antibodies and they will destroy the streptokinase. If there are no antibodies previously, then anti-streptococcal antibodies are formed within 4 to 5 days of this drug. Therefore, this drug should not be given again. Maximum there should be a gap of 1 year if you want to give this drug again. And the main side effect of this drug, or you can say disadvantage, is that it causes allergic reaction because this is a foreign protein. It has been synthesized by beta hemolytic streptococci. So it is a foreign protein. So the main disadvantage is it causes allergic reactions that can be hypersensitivity reactions and also hypotension, that is falling BP. The main advantage is that this is a cheap drug. So remember, streptokinase is a protease enzyme. It is produced by beta hemolytic streptococci. The main mechanism, it forms a complex with this pro-activator, and after forming the non-covalent complex, it causes degradation of plasminogen. It converts plasminogen to plasmin, and that causes degradation of fibrinogen. And half-life is 40 to 80 minutes. The main disadvantage is that if the person is having past infection with beta hemolytic streptococci, there is a formation of anti-streptococcal antibodies, so that destroys maximum amount of streptokinase. If there is no antibodies before because of any past infection, then if you administer this drug within 4 to 5 days, the person will develop these antibodies. So the drug should not be repeated within a gap of 1 year. After 1 year, you can think of repeating this drug. And another disadvantage is that there is chance of allergic reaction because it is a foreign protein, and the allergic reactions includes hypersensitivity reactions and hypotension. The only advantage is that this is a cheap drug available. Next drug is urokinase. As the name indicates, uro. What is the uro? As we all know, uro is related to kidney, and it is present in the human urine. So it is present in human urine as it is synthesized by kidney. And how it is obtained? It is obtained from the cultured human kidney cells. And half-life is 15 to 20 minutes. Remember, streptokinase half-life was 40 to 80 minutes. Here the half-life is 15 to 20 minutes. And it is metabolized in liver and directly converts plasminogen to active form, that is plasmin. So streptokinase was forming a complex with a proactivator, whereas urokinase, you does not have to form a complex. It directly converts plasminogen to active form, that is plasmin. So what are the advantages over the streptokinase? First, it is a non-antigenic because it is not derived by any bacteria. It is just cultured from the human kidney cells. So it is non-antigenic. It is not a foreign protein, so they will have no allergic reaction, no hypotension, and it is useful in patients who earlier received streptokinase is not destroyed by anti-streptococcal antibodies. This will not be destroyed by anti-streptococcal antibodies. And the advantage is same like streptokinase, it is also a cheap drug. The disadvantage is that it is not a fibrin selective. And there is also available, that is recombinant pro-urokinase. It gets converted to urokinase on binding to fibrin clot, thus making it more fibrin specific. So recombinant urokinase also is available. On binding to a fibrin clot, it will get converted to urokinase, and thus it make it more fibrin specific. Now come to next drug, that is enistreptase. If you remember, this is a second generation fibrinolytics. So what does this drug do? It is also a streptokinase activator, that is, it is an isolated plasminogen streptokinase activator complex. Why this drug was synthesized? What is the need? That it was synthesized to improve the pharmacokinetics of streptokinase plasminogen complex. This complex consists of purified human plasminogen with bacterial streptokinase, in which the active site of plasminogen is protected by an isolysum. It is a process of acetylation. Okay, see this diagram. This is N-striplase. So this is a combination of bacterial streptokinase with proactivator. This complex is called as N-striplase. So it is a composition of a bacterial streptokinase and purified human plasminogen. And here the active site of plasminogen will be protected by N-isolation, that is nothing but acetylation. So when you give this drug, what happens? The acyl group will hydrolyze spontaneously and it will only release the activated streptokinase complex. Only the activated streptokinase complex will be released and that perform the fibrinolysis. So the main advantage of this drug, it was developed to improve the pharmacokinetics of streptokinase. So this drug is a combination of a purified human plasminogen with a bacterial streptokinase, and when you administer this drug, there will be, because of acetylation, the acyl group will get spontaneously hydrolyzed, leaving only the active streptokinase proactivator complex, and that perform the fibrinolysis. So compared to streptokinase, this N-striplase is more fibrin specific, and streptokinase half-life was 40 to 80 minutes. This drug has half-life of more than 90 minutes. Because of its long half-life, the activity of fibrinolysis will last for about 5 to 6 hours. The adverse effects is same as like streptokinase, that is hemorrhage, hypersensitivity and hypotension. So use this, you have to give single IV bolus of 30 units over a period of 4 to 5 minutes. Now come the recombinant tissue plasminogen activators. This include drugs like LT-plase, RT-plase and tinitiplase. All will end with suffix TEP-LASE. So these are the recombinant tissue plasminogen activators. So why it is called recombinant? Because it is formed from a human tissue culture by recombinant DNA technology. And the main advantage of this drug is, if you remember all the first generation, that is streptokinase, urokinase, including the second generation, that is N-striplase, they were having the main disadvantages hemorrhage as a side effect, that is bleeding. But in recombinant tissue plasminogen activators, the side effect bleeding will be less. Why? Because this drug is clot selective. It activates fibrin-bound plasminogen. It will have no effect on the circulating plasminogen. Only the plasminogen which is fibrin-bound, it will activate that. So this is a clot selective and hence the advantage is less bleeding. This is the important point you have to remember. It also dissolves aging or lyses the resistant thrombi. That is a thrombi which is resistant to the other drugs. This can be get lysed by these drugs. And it is rapidly active, more potent, more effective. So the advantages of these two recombinant tissue plasminogen activators are, it is non-antigenic. Okay, it is not a foreign protein. It is a purified human form derived from the recombinant DNA technology. So this is a non-antigenic. So no allergic reaction, not destroyed by antibodies, can be repeated as and when required. All the three drugs will have similar efficacy and similar toxicity. The only difference between these drugs will be in duration of action and mode of administration. Some drugs are given as IV infusion or as bolus. So only the difference is there in relation to their duration of action and mode of administration. The disadvantage is that it is very costly. As it is derived from recombinant DNA, we can know that it will be a cost. Okay, it will be high cost. So compared to streptokinase, urokinase, it is a very high cost. So the drugs are LT+, RT+, and TNT+. Okay. So LT+, it has low, as I told, these drugs mostly activate the plasminogen, which is bound to fibrin in a thrombus. It will have no action on the circulating free plasminogen. And so they are called as highly fibrin specific. So it is having short half-life, that is 5 to 10 minutes, and no allergic activity, and expensive. Retitiplase is same as alitiplase, only it is having longer half-life. That is, here it is short half-life, 5 to 10 minutes. Here it is 15 to 20 minutes. And dose is 2 bolus injection of 10 units at 30 minutes apart. Tinitiplase, it is a genetically mutant form of LT+, and this is also having the longer half-life, and dose is same, single bolus you have to give 50 milligram over 5 seconds. This you have to give 2 bolus injection of each 10 units 30 minutes apart. Here you have to give single bolus 50 milligrams over 5 seconds. So that completes your fibrinolytic drugs. We'll go to the next session, that is antiplatelet drugs. This is very important regarding your exam point of view. So please give attention. Antiplatelet drugs. So remember the antithrombotic drugs. What are the antithrombotic drugs? That can be anticoagulants, antiplatelets, or fibrinolytics. So anticoagulants and antiplatelets are given mostly as a primary prevention and secondary prevention to prevent the formation of thrombus. And fibrinolytica is the drugs, or are the drugs that is once the clot is already formed, already the thrombus or the embolus or the clot has formed. Then to lyse that clot, we are giving fibrinolytics. Whereas these two drugs, that is anticoagulants and antiplatelets, they act as a preventive drug, that is primary prevention, secondary prevention to prevent the clot formation. So anticoagulant drugs are nothing but these are effective in prevention and treatment of thrombosis in both venous and arterial systems. Remember, anticoagulants is used for prevention and treatment of thrombosis in both venous and arterial. But antiplatelet drugs are only considered for arterial, okay, not for venous. Venous it is least effective. Mostly for arterial or intracardiac, mostly coronary artery blood vessels. They are mostly prescribed, antiplatelet drugs. Why it is mostly prescribed for an arterial thrombi? Because these arterial thrombi are rich in platelets. Whereas the thrombi and emboli, which is there in venous system, they have very low platelet count. So the antiplatelet drugs are least effective for a treatment of venous thrombi. Mostly it is indicated for an arterial thrombus. Then the third is fibrinolytics. So these drugs, they have a direct action to dissolve the existing thrombus. Okay, already the thrombus has formed. To dissolve that thrombus, we are giving these thrombolytic drugs. So these are used for the acute treatment of thrombosis, mainly the treatment of acute MI, ischemic stroke, and massive pulmonary embolism. Next, so how the platelets will become activated and how they get aggregated. So what is the mechanism will be taught in the next slide. Before that, you remember every platelet in the outer membrane, they have variety of receptors. They respond to the signals which will either promote the platelet aggregation or inhibit the platelet aggregation. Okay, that depends upon the receptors present in the outer membrane of platelets. See, this is the role of platelets. So the platelets, first step is there will be platelet adhesion. Whenever there is an endothelial injury, what happens? The first step is platelet adhesion. What do you mean by platelet adhesion? That is the platelets get adhered to the other structures. Then the second is platelet activation. What happens in platelet activation? As I told you, see, this platelet outer membrane have many receptors. and also they have glycoprotein 1b receptors and von Willebrand factor. And there are other receptors like factor 2, ADP, thromboxane A2, collagen. So what happens whenever there is an endothelial injury? First, there will be platelet adhesion, and second, how do they get activated? That is, whenever there is an endothelial injury, these are the platelets will get exposed to collagen, thrombin, and they go and bind to the receptors which is present in the outer membrane of the platelets, and they make activation of the platelets. So these are the receptors which got binded to the platelets, and the platelet got activated. And the third step is aggregation, that is clumping of the platelets together, that is called aggregation. So remember the three steps, that is platelet adhesion, activation, and aggregation. I'll repeat it. See, in adhesion, what happens? That is only there will be, the platelets will get adhered to the other structures. In platelet activation, what happens? After this endothelial injury, the platelets get exposed to collagen, thrombin, and other receptors, and then they get binded to the receptors which were present in the outer membrane of the platelets, and that causes platelets to be activated. So these are the activated platelets. And then there will be aggregation, that is clumping of the platelets together. That is called platelet aggregation. Now see, mechanism of platelet aggregation and inhibition is, first what happens in the normal and undamaged blood vessels. Whenever there is a normal and undamaged blood vessels, the platelets will not be activated. They circulate freely, and they will cause release of prostaglandin I2. You remember, I means inhibits platelet aggregation. Okay, I means inhibits platelet aggregation. So Ig2 will be synthesized by this normal undamaged vascular endothelium, and after it gets synthesized, it gets released to plasma, and then it activates PGI2 receptor present in platelets, and they causes increase in the cyclic AMP, and that inhibits the platelet aggregation. This what happens in the normal blood vessels. Remember, in normal and undamaged blood vessels, the platelets will not be activated. They circulate freely. There will be a synthesis of PGI2. I stands that it inhibits the platelet aggregation. How? Means PGI2 will get synthesized by this undamaged vascular endothelium, and after getting synthesized in endothelium, they get released to plasma, and then they activate the PGI2 receptors which are there in the platelets, and that causes increase in the cyclic AMP, and that inhibits the platelet aggregation. I shall explain in this diagram. See, in this diagram you will know. This green color is the plasma and this is the platelets. So what happens? See, in this diagram, this is the endothelium. It is not damaged. This is the normal endothelium. So normal vascular endothelium, in normal endothelium, what happens? They synthesize PGI2, prostaglandin I2. And this prostaglandin I2, after getting synthesized from endothelium, it gets released to the plasma. This green color indicates plasma. So it gets released to the plasma, and then after getting released, it goes and binds to this PGI2 receptor which is present in platelet. And after it gets bind to this receptor, PGI2 receptor in platelets, there is a conversion of ATP to cyclic AMP. So this cyclic AMP inhibits the platelet aggregation. So this is a normal which happens in a undamaged blood vessel. So by this process, they inhibit the platelet aggregation. And the cyclic AMP which was formed, it gets degraded to 5' AMP. Okay, cyclic AMP will be getting degraded to 5' AMP. Then what happens? After that, Now see, now this is the damaged endothelium. So once the endothelium gets damaged, what happens? There is exposed to collagen. And what does the exposed collagen do? First, it causes release of 5-HT and ADP. Okay, it causes release of 5-HT, that is serotonin, and ADP, adenine diphosphate, through IP3-DAG pathway. Okay, initiator triphosphate diacetyl glycerol pathway. There will be release of 5-HT and ADP. So what is the role of this? 5-HT is a vasoconstrictor that decreases the blood supply to the injured vessel. Okay, and also this exposed collagen, through it causes synthesis of arachidonic acid with the help of platelet derived phospholipase enzyme. Okay, with the help of platelet derived phospholipase enzyme, there is a synthesis of arachidonic acid. This arachidonic acid, with the help of COX enzyme, that is cyclooxygenase 1 enzyme, gets converted to prostaglandin H2, that gets converted to thromboxane A2, and this thromboxane A2 get released from platelet to plasma. Okay, then this thromboxane A2 and 5-HT ADP, they attach to the respective receptors of the nearby platelets. Okay, they will go and bind to the receptors of these nearby platelets and activate those receptors. That is thromboxane A2, which is the TP receptors, glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptors. This is PAR, that is protease activated receptor 1, protease activated receptor 2, and ADP receptors. So all these receptors will be getting activated. So remember, in intact or normal endothelium, there will be no aggregation of the platelets. Why? Because they synthesize prostaglandin I2. I stands that it inhibits the platelet aggregation. So after releasing a PGI2 from endothelium, it gets released to plasma. They bind to this PGI2 receptor in the platelets and they convert ATP to cyclic AMP that inhibits the platelet aggregation. Once the endothelium damage happens, there will be exposed collagen. They causes synthesis of 5-HT and ADP through IP3-DAG pathway, and they also causes synthesis of arachidonic acid through the platelet membrane derived phospholipase enzyme, and with the help of cyclooxygenase enzyme, PGH2 will be formed, then thromboxane A2, and this thromboxane A2 which is formed in platelets, they get released to plasma, and these two, they will attach to the respective receptors which is present in the nearby platelets. So they causes activation of thromboxane A2 receptors, ADP receptors, protease activated receptor 1 and protease activated receptor 2. Remember, there is also one more receptors, that is glycoprotein 2B and 3A. This is a receptor which remains normally in inactive form. Normally it remains in the inactive form. Usually this receptor is called as fibrinogen binding domain. Fibrinogen binding domain. But normally this receptor remains in inactive form. But once a platelet gets activated through TP receptors, ADP receptors, then this glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptors will become activated and they will cause the fibrinogen binding, cross-linking of the fibrinogen, and they will cause the formation of the platelet clumps, that is platelet aggregation. So the antiplatelet drugs, they act in this cycle. If you remember this cycle well, you can easily remember the mechanism of the action of the each antiplatelet drugs. So remember, now we will see the each drug. The first drug is dipyridamole. Okay, dipyridamole. So what does this drug do? See, this drug inhibits the phosphodiesterase enzyme. This cyclic AMP was getting converted to 5' AMP by the enzyme that is phosphodiesterase. Okay, PDE, phosphodiesterase enzyme. This dipyridamole, what does it do? It inhibits the phosphodiesterase enzyme. so that cyclic AMP will not be getting converted to 5 prime, sorry, will not be getting degraded to 5 prime AMP. So what happens when it does not get degraded? There is enough of cyclic AMP in the platelets. And as we know, cyclic AMP inhibits the platelet aggregation. So the first drug, dipyridamole, it inhibits the phosphodiesterase enzyme. As a result, it inhibits the degradation of cyclic AMP to 5' AMP, and cyclic AMP inhibits the platelet aggregation. So this is how it acts as an antiplatelet drugs. The second drug, remember, aspirin. Aspirin, it inhibits COX enzyme, that is cyclooxygenase 1. If it inhibits this enzyme, there will be no synthesis of thromboxane A2. So the thromboxane A2 will not be formed and it will not go and activate the TP receptors. So there will be no platelet aggregation. Okay. And the third drug will be, see, ADP receptor antagonist, that is clopidogrel and ticlodipine. Other two drugs are there in this group, I'll say you. So remember, the main drugs are clopidogrel and ticlopidine. So these are the drugs which inhibit the binding of ADP to the ADP receptors. As a result, it prevents the platelet aggregation. So we finish the 3 group of drugs. The 4th group will be glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor antagonist. In this, the drugs are EPSI, remember Eb6C-MAB, Eb6C-MAB, iptifibatide, tirofiban. Okay, Eb6C-MAB, iptifibatide, tirofiban. These are the 3 drugs which acts as a glycoprotein 2B3A receptor antagonist. So it prevents the fibrinogen binding to this receptor, and then in this way there will be no cross-linking of fibrinogen and no formation of the platelet clumps. Then the fifth group of drug is inhibitor of TP receptors. Okay, TP receptor is nothing but the thromboxane A2 receptors. Even though thromboxane A2 gets synthesized also, this drug prevents the thromboxane A2 to come and bind to the TP receptors. So, and it prevents platelet aggregation. That is tirotroban. Okay, and the last group of drug is Vorapaxar. So this is, I told you there are 2 other receptors, that is PAR, that is protease activated receptor 1, protease activated receptor 2. This is a recent developed drug. Okay, these are the 2 receptors which favors the binding of thrombin. Thrombin is the factor 2. Thrombin also causes platelet aggregation by converting fibrinogen to fibrin, and and also it helps in the synthesis of factor 13. So these are the 2 receptors to which the thrombin binds and causes platelet aggregation. So this Vorapaxar, it prevents the binding of thrombin, that is factor 2, to this receptor. So in that way it prevents the platelet aggregation. So remember the antiplatelet drugs, these are the mechanism. The first group, remember, dipyridamole. Okay, dipyridamole. It inhibits phosphodiesterase enzyme. So there will be no conversion of cyclic AMP to 5' AMP, and this cyclic AMP remains, it does not get degraded, and it inhibits platelet aggregation. The second group is aspirin. It inhibits the cyclooxygenase enzyme. There will be no formation of thromboxane A2, and this thromboxane A2 cannot come and bind to these TP receptors, and it prevents platelet aggregation. The third group is ADP receptor, not antagonist. I mean, these drugs are there, that is clopidogrel and ticlopidine. They prevent this ADP to come and bind to these ADP receptors which are present in the platelets. In that way, it prevents the platelet aggregation. The fourth group of drug is glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor antagonist, that is abiximab, iptifibatide, tirofiban. These are the glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor antagonists. So they prevent the binding of the fibrinogen and prevents the cross-linking of fibrinogen, activated platelets, and prevents the formation of the platelet clumps. The next group of drug is tiotroban, which inhibits the binding of thromboxane A2 to its receptors, that is TP receptor, and prevents the formation of the platelet aggregation. The last group is Vorapaxar. It is a recently developed drug that is they inhibit the binding of the factor 2 thrombin to protease activated receptor 1 and protease activated receptor 4, which is present in the platelets. So remember this cycle. You will easily understand the mechanism of action of the yeast drug. So this is in general antiplatelet drugs. So first is ADP receptor antagonist, that is ticlodipine, clopidogrel, prasugrel, ticagrelor. In this diagram I have mentioned only these two drugs are mentioned. In this drug there are the other drugs, that is prasugrel and ticagrelor. Then COX inhibitor is aspirin, phosphodiesterase inhibitor, which is nothing but this enzyme, this one. Here the cyclic AMP gets degraded to 5' AMP to phosphodiesterase enzyme. So dipyridamole, this is a drug which is a phosphodiesterase inhibitor. Then next is glycoprotein 2B and 3A inhibitors, that is tirofiban, iptifibatide, ebiximab. These are the three drugs. Then the last is Vorapaxar, which is a recently developed drug, that is platelet thrombin protease activated receptor, PAR. Protease activated receptor. So platelet thrombin protease activated receptor 1 antagonist. So this is your acetyl salicylic acid mechanism. Acetyl salicylic acid is nothing but is your aspirin. So what does it do? It inhibits the COX enzyme and prevents and does not synthesize thromboxane A2. So this is a platelet. It is having the TP receptors, which is nothing but your thromboxane receptors. So what happens? Usually this thromboxane A2 binds to this TP receptor. But if you give aspirin, it inhibits this thromboxane A2 formation so that it cannot bind with this receptor and inhibits platelet activation and aggregation. Okay, remember. Aspirin inhibits the synthesis of thromboxane A2 by inhibiting the cyclooxygenase enzyme, that is COX-1. So aspirin pharmacokinetics is it undergoes rapid absorption in stomach and upper intestine, and peak plasma concentration will be achieved within 15 to 20 minutes of administration, and the peak inhibitory effect on platelet aggregation is approximately 1 hour post administration. And it inhibits the enzyme, that is cyclooxygenase, irreversible. Okay, therefore it causes irreversible inhibition of platelets for the rest of their lifespan, that is 7 days. Uses, it can be used for secondary prevention of transient ischemic attack, ischemic stroke and myocardial infarction, and also to prevent the ischemic attack in patients with angina pectoris, and also it helps in prevention of coronary artery bypass, graft occlusion. Then the next drug is your ADP receptor antagonist. Okay, that is your clopidogrel and ticlodipine. So they block this ADP to come and bind to this ADP receptors. This is the ADP receptor which is present in the platelets. These two drugs, ticlopidine and clopidogrel, it blocks the ADP binding to these receptors. See, this clopidogrel prevents the ADP to come and bind to this receptor. So both currently available ADP receptor antagonists, that is clopidogrel and ticlopidine, they are the thiopyridines and they are mostly administered orally and the absorption is quite good, that is 80 to 90%. So remember, these are the drugs which are the pro-drugs. So they get activated in the liver. The next drug in this group is prasugrel, which is a recently introduced drug, It is approved for the thrombotic cardiovascular event in patients with acute coronary syndrome. And this drug, in comparison to clopidogrel, it is more potent and rapidly acting. And same like clopidogrel, it is also a prodrug. Only you remember it is more potent and rapidly acting drug. Ticagrelor, it is also a rapid onset and more potent. Okay, the next group is glycoprotein 2B and 3A. This all I have already explained. See, this is the activated platelet. These are the receptors, glycoprotein 2B and 3A. So what happens when they get activated? They cause binding of the fibrinogen, and that leads to the platelet aggregation. So when you give glycoprotein 2B and 3A antagonist, they come and bind to this glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptors. The drugs will bind to these receptors and they prevent the cross-linking of fibrinogen, and in that way they inhibit the platelet aggregation. So this glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor antagonists, they are only available for IV administration. You cannot give this drug orally, only IV. The drugs are abiximab, iptifibatide and tirofiban. So they block this receptor and prevents fibrinogen from cross-linking activated platelets and inhibits thrombus growth. So abiximab, it is the FAB fragment, that is antigen binding fragment of a humanized monoclonal antibody. Okay, it is a humanized monoclonal antibody. The name itself is MAB. MAB is any drug ending with suffix MAB, that is they are the monoclonal antibodies. So they bind with glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor and they inhibit the fibrinogen cross-linking of platelets, which is a final common pathway of platelet aggregation. The half-life of this drug is 30 minutes and side effect is bleeding. Eptifibatide, it is a cyclic peptide inhibitor. So this is in general the uses of antiplatelet drugs, which includes your aspirin, ADP antagonist, that is ticlopidine and clopidogrel, dipyridamole, that is which inhibits the phosphodiesterase enzyme, and glycoprotein 2B and 3A receptor antagonist. So aspirin is widely used in patients in risk of thromboembolic diseases. ADP antagonists are mostly beneficial for treatment of acute coronary syndrome and prevention of thromboembolic events. Dipyridamole, it helps in secondary prevention in the patients following stroke in combination with aspirin. Glycoprotein 2B and 3A antagonist, this also is administered IV and mostly it is effective during the PCI technique, that is percutaneous coronary intervention. So that completes your chapter antiplatelets. So students, please read about fibrinolytic drugs. All the 6 drugs are important. That is streptokinase, urokinase, then second generation N-streptase, and the recombinant drugs, that is retiplase, tenecteplase. All the drugs are very important. So please read the mechanism. And coming to the antiplatelet drugs, do remember, if you can't remember the individual drugs diagram, please do remember the main mechanism of action. This diagram. If you remember this cycle, this diagram, it will be easy for you to remember each drug's mechanism of the action. This is a new drug. The indication have not yet been mentioned. The other drugs, indications you can read. Thank you.